Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Adita Karkera, Chief Data Officer for Deloitte's Government and Public Services. And today I have the great privilege to be talking to Kirsten Dalboe, Chief Data Officer for Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Kirsten, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's always fun to chat with you, Adita.
Kirsten, let's talk a little bit about the Chief Data Officer Council. And
Okay.
you, of course, are a very seasoned industry veteran in the data and the federal space here. As you took on this CDOC chair role, what were you seeing from your perspective in talking to other CDOs? The challenges that they are facing, and then more importantly, let's talk about what are CDOC's plans for addressing some of the challenges that you heard from the CDOs. I know you all recently also published out a new strategy, I believe, for the CDOC. So just be lovely to hear your perspective from that angle.
Yeah, sure. So I know I'd mentioned earlier the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act, which became law in, I believe, January 2019. And so part of that law required all agencies to hire CDOs. Another part of that law required the establishment of this CDO, the Federal CDO Council. So I believe what the law, it was January 2019, when the law was passed. I think we had our official first CDO orientation in September of 2019 and the official kickoff of the CDO Council January of 2020, I believe. So, we're not quite 5 years in now as a council. Just a little bit of background on the council. We're somewhat unique in that many of the federal councils only include the 24 large agencies, department level agencies. They're called CFO Act agencies because there are 24 agencies named in the CFO Act. Those are the large department cabinet level agencies. And then there's all of us, independent regulatory agencies, small agencies that are typically outside of that. The CDO Council is unique because it specifically includes all federal agency CDOs. So that's not just the large agency CDOs, it's also all of us small agency CDOs. So we actually do have a membership of about 100. So it's a pretty large council where we do have the 24 CFO Act agencies and then about 75-ish of those of us in that sort of non-CFO Act agency. We also have a few members in the council from the Office of Management and Budget, and we have ex officio representatives. So that means that we have representatives from the CHICO Council, the CFO Council, the CIO Council, some of our peer councils. So that ex officio relationship is important to make sure that we're sort of hearing what's happening in other councils and how we can collaborate effectively. The law also has 5 requirements for us written into the law related to things like developing government-wide best practices for the use of data, identifying ways that we can improve upon the production of evidence and data for use in policymaking, encouraging data sharing, how we consult with the public, engage with private users on the use of government data, and also identifying and evaluating new technology solutions for improving the collection and use of data. So it's interesting that these are specifically written into the law in terms of our responsibilities. And then, yes, we recently, when I became chair in January of this year, and so we sat down with our executive committee and established a new set of goals and objectives. Again, similar to my FERC journey, hey, we've been around for about 4 years, very much in kind of startup mode. We've done a lot of really great work, but a lot of our work has been around getting all of us new CDOs comfortable in our role, helping us understand what our role is, collaborating about that, coaching each other, mentoring each other, helping each other. So what is next now? So the big 5 areas that we're looking at now going forward. The first one is strengthening and empowering the federal workforce in the use of data. So this is kind of always a common thread, making sure that our whole federal workforce can effectively work with all of this government data because the government runs on data, right? Then we want to be able to professionalize the CDO function. So if you look at maybe the CIO or the CISO 10, 20 years ago, they were probably in a similar state as we were. And now they've established various professionalization, certificate programs, degree programs, exams, other things. We want to start thinking about that for the CDO. So that there's a little bit more clarity on the role and competency models and things like that. A big one, the third goal that we've established, we're calling it optimize the business of the data lifecycle. This is really about how we raise up the value stories of our community, how we tell our stories more effectively to leadership and to our organization, because we know in the data space that all of our work hinges on data, but for those people who have not been in the data space, don't always see that. So how do we tell the stories as effectively as possible to make sure that we're getting the budgets and the resources to really do the work that's necessary? So, is there what is the return on investment for a data management program? How do we make sure that leadership understands that, a dollar invested in data management will likely save up to $5 downstream? If you don't invest in this now, it's going to cost you $5 later to fix. So telling those stories more effectively. So we've just actually now, within the last month or two, stood up a new working group within the CDO Council to really focus on that area, because we want to make sure that we can really tell those stories well. I think those of us in the data space, many of us come from more of a technical background, so changing our communication style. So we're not talking in the technical jargon. We're talking in the language that leadership understands, so that we can get the investment necessary in all of this important work. And then the last two goal areas really hinge around the data lifecycle. So our fourth goal is optimize customer experience through efficient collection and use of data. This is really on the input side of the data lifecycle. I feel like historically we've been talking a lot about the output side. What do analytics look like? Now we're talking about AI. What does the AI look like? None of that will work well if we don't have really strong understanding of the entrance point of the data, the collection point. So we want to make sure that we're really thinking about and putting resources together that can help us understand kind of the data journey map, developing and advancing our federal data collection best practices. So as I mentioned earlier with the Paperwork Reduction Act, we have a law that drives how we're allowed to collect data from our citizens. Can we be more strategic about how we do that, so that we're getting the data that we actually really need to do the analysis to facilitate our mission work? So we want to think more strategically about that input side, because the better the data comes in, the better we can actually use this data. Everyone says garbage in, garbage out. Well, we don't want it to be garbage in. So what does that look like? And then finally, the fifth goal area, as I mentioned, this is the later half now of the data lifecycle. So this is empowering modern digital experiences. So this is more on that analytics side, the AI side. We want to be able to identify best practices for managing data to enable responsible AI, thinking about things like, what does a data card look like? Can we, through our stewardship processes and metadata capture, want to make sure that we're really being thoughtful about how we capture all of that, how we are consistent in the capture of that, so that when government data gets used for AI training models, and it likely will, government has huge volumes of data and it's freely available. So we are positive that government data will be used in a lot of AI models. Want to make sure that is high quality data, well documented data. You have like the right sort of confidence of what that data is telling you and what it means. Thinking about the risk frameworks for the use of open data in those AI training models. Enabling users to obtain meaningful responses from government data. So that was kind of the fast walkthrough of the five areas, with empowering the federal workforce, professionalizing our CDO function, optimizing our value proposition, making sure people understand who we are as CDOs and why our work is so important to the work of and mission of government. And then optimizing our customer experiences through the input, and then the empowering digital experiences on the output side. So that's the quick summary there.
No, thanks for walking us through that, Kirsten. It really is interesting for us on the outside, as not being part of the council, to see like how the council is thinking about addressing the challenges with the evolving role of the CDO. And frankly, myself being in the industry for over 2 decades, part of why I was compelled to do my personal doctoral research on the role of the CDO was just that we haven't been able to define what should the role of the government CDO look like. What are we wanting to achieve from that CDO role? And it's no longer just that back end data office role, right? It has evolved so much and kind of being front and center as part of that organization's overall strategy, right? So really interesting to hear from you what the CDOC is focused on this year. And I'm sure the audience will continue to follow on, what is it, cdo.gov?
Yes,
The official website?
cdo.gov. Yep.
We look forward to following all the progress there. So thank you for sharing those nuggets with us. Kirsten, last question for you. I think it would be really remiss if you wouldn't talk about you being such a phenomenal women in data champion for this industry. Being in the industry for what, over almost 2 decades yourself
Yeah,
here,
2 decades. Apparently, I am
Yeah.
at that age. Yes.
I know there are so many other women as well as our allies who look up to you as a very strong female data leader. Would love for you to maybe share just a little bit about your passion in this space and maybe some of your goals specifically for helping us balance this gender equation in this field.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, right. I'm very passionate about advocating for women in data, women in technology, all of that space. Um, first of all, I want to make sure that I'm being a good role model to all of the women out there, and that they can see themselves in this space, and that they feel like they're equals at the table. I really enjoy doing um, mentoring of particularly women, and helping them feel empowered, that they are welcome to this space, that they don't need to wait for permission. They've through being hired, they have already been invited to this space. So they need to feel comfortable speaking up, and making the points that they need to make, and feeling confident in that. I really love to be able to offer that advice, those strategies, how to exceed as a women in a male dominated space. I will also say, um, having been in this world for, yes, over 2 decades now, it's a little surprising to realize that. Um, it's always been a male dominated space. I've been lucky in my career that the majority of the men that I've worked with, um, have given me an equal voice in the conversation. And maybe particularly early in my career, maybe in that mine warfare project, I did have a number of great people that I worked with, even though I was probably the only woman in that room, particularly in that military environment. Um, but the fact that I was regularly asked for my thoughts, my opinions, my ideas, gave me the confidence then to sort of move into other spaces and speak up. And I want to make sure that other women feel like they have that same level of permission. And if they don't feel like they have that permission, then coaching them to find the environments where they do have that space to speak and share their voices and be heard. Um, so there's always more to do, but the biggest thing is just making sure that the women who are well trained, know this stuff inside out and upside down. They know that their voices, are relevant to the conversation. They're confident to speak up, because once you get comfortable speaking up, it just becomes muscle memory, and then you just keep going from there. But you got to get over that first hurdle of feeling like you're being given a spot to speak your voice. But once you can, keep going from there. But we definitely have an important role to play here in this space, because women have a lot of fantastic ideas, and we can really excel in this environment, but have to feel confident that we are invited to this table.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, you are a great role model. So thank you for being there, and thank you for all the work that you do to mentor other women to come into this space. And also thank you for all the support with the federal government chapter for women in data. So, Kirsten, thank you for your efforts, and thank you for being with us today and sharing all your perspectives with the audience. It's always great catching up with you, and thank you for sharing all of those experiences. For the audience, please continue to visit our websites. There are so many more great perspectives lined up for you. So be sure to check out those Deloitte and CDO magazine interviews out there. Thank you.